All right, so I'm James. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, home of country music. First career was whitewater rafting. That's why I have a tourism voice. It's just gonna stay loud. I don't know why they even gave me a microphone. Um, my background is macroeconomics. Econ is where all this stuff comes from because we talk a lot about causality, and that's kind of a thing for me today. Who are you guys? Where are my data people? Yeah, NumPy, pandas, scikit. What about my multivariate modelers? Yeah, yeah, it kind of. Where? Wait, where are my univariate modelers? Is anybody? Yeah, is that is okay? At least two of y'all. That's cool. I don't remember the last time, besides preparing for this, that I just did X regressed on Y. Anybody into causal analysis? Lay awake at night thinking about DAGs. One per kind. You don't lay awake at night. You just kind of ponder them after coffee. Okay. How do y'all choose your variables? Is it kind of a like a algorithm based, lasso, ANOVA, chi-squared? Anybody on that? No, it's old school, right? What about we're more model comparison, root mean squared error, information criteria? Yeah, yeah. Is that kind of yeah? Um, Graphical analysis? What? Yeah, who's got the nice in the variance covariance, the heat map, right? That, it looks good. I'm not good at looks good. Apologize for the boring slides. Who just uses whatever everybody else is using? Like I'm an economist, and so obviously dummy variables for gender, for race, right? What could possibly go wrong? Who just throws everything they have in there and hopes for the best? Yeah, right? Yeah. And does that make you a little nervous sometimes when you think about confounders? Because the thing about confounders is they can make your data do and your model do funny things, and that can mislead you. But if you put in too many variables, then you can mislead yourself. And somewhere in the middle is a sweet spot where you do both, making you doubly wrong. And that's what we're going for here today, right? You guys excited? Inspiring confidence, right? Yeah, woo! Um, so groundwork. I'm just gonna stay in a linear world. You got your betas, you got your x's, x1, x2. From economics, got yeah, gender, race, education. Just real quick, not directly relevant, but I think important. What are we assuming about race and gender in this model? That they matter? That given someone's education, like holding education constant, if I change you from a male or a female, your income will shift no matter what your education level. Highly educated men make 10,000 euros more than highly educated women. Lowly educated men, same different. Same with black men, black women, white men, white women. If we're doing a binary black white like the U.S. does, right? Does that feel like a really strong assumption? Maybe that somebody doing economics shouldn't make. Side note, but we're there. Oh, you guys see that too? Sorry. Um, this is not my computer. It's not my fault. So I'm going to assume that we have an outcome variable y. We're not just trying to predict y t plus 1. We want to know what does x1 do to y. Usually it's x1, whatever. We want to see, and so really our parameter of interest would be the beta for x1. What effect does x1 have? So when I talk about controlling, I'm just talking about adding as a control variable to the regression. It's another feature, another explanatory variable. We like to name weird things. Some people call it a confounder. Apparently that's a psychology thing. Anybody know? Then it is a psychology thing, if you can't say otherwise. And then we have our model. It's a tiny little world where we pretend something that don't exist. If it's not in our model, it's not in our world. I was doing an economics project with a business ethics guy, and he kept on like one of the things he asked, what about inequality aversion? You know, people don't like seeing rich people next to poor people. I'm like, here's our he asked that from like 5 different things, and I finally just wrote down the equations and said, what equation do you see that in? Then it's not in our model. And it's harsh, but it's you know The flip side of that is if you want that in your equation, in your model, find a variable. All models are wrong, but some are useful. Here we're going to talk about retention being a pizza party plus a morale, right? That's a model. What do you not see there? Sorry? Price of the pizza. What about price of the labor? Who here is working still because they get paid? If somebody called you and said, you can come in on Monday, but we're not giving you any money for it, are you going to work? Yeah, right? That should be in the model. If it's not, and we're going to come back to this model, it's important. So latent variable, you can't see it. How intelligent are you? Obviously very, because you're at a PyCon conference. We can observe you being at a PyCon conference. We can't observe how intelligent you are. There are lots of tests. There's lots of, but does anybody kind of freeze up in a test? Got a low IQ test score because you were a little stressed out. There's a little, why are you asking me so many questions, right? You can't measure IQ even with an IQ test. It's not a good measure of IQ, right? So it's latent, it's unseen, but it's still important. I'm way out of time, guys. I'm gonna turn on the afterburners pretty quick. But this is the other important thing. We were told correlation does not imply causality. Statistics doesn't deal with causality, right? Do you guys remember this from your stats class? In your stats, obviously it helped, right? We all know, we all with our human brains can say, I did this, nothing else in my life changed, now I know that. This caused me to know that. This is why we're here today, and this is what's asked of us, right? When our boss asks, how do we make employee retention better? Did the pizza party work? That is a causal question. I can't tell my boss, the pizza party is correlated with a slight increase, and it's possible that the increase in employee retention caused a pizza party. Yeah. So the framework, all the variables are in the model because they affect another variable. If you've got a variable that you're like, I don't know if this affects anything, but I'm going to put it in, don't. And we have to decide in this causal framework, when we put a variable in our model, which way, we only get one. A can cause B or B can cause A. They cannot cause each other. It's the chicken or the egg, right? Rain and mud. Obviously, mud causes rain. I go outside, there's mud, it must be raining, right? It sounds easy. We struggle with it. Lung cancer causes smoking, right? Are you guys familiar with this academic literature from the 40s, 50s, 60s? Yeah, right. I'm glad somebody with a biology background is nodding because that makes me right. Okay, rain causes mud. Is rain the only thing that causes mud? No, there's that pipe that busted, right? And then what else? Well, mud causes laundry. And I don't need to wash my clothes, I also need to wash myself. Right? But then after a nice shower, I get a nice hot cocoa. And that's lovely. And that's my little, everything I can measure. What about sweat? Do you guys know if I'm sweating? Right? Yeah, let's pretend I'm not. Everything is fine. It's latent, we can't see it. And here, rain affects sweat. Well, rain, the lack of rain, if it gets hot, if it gets humid. There, it's not so problematic. What if sweat caused rain? Then we have a latent variable that's acting. We're not going to deal with that today. But think of that in the back of your head. Start wondering about that. Pause and ponder, right? Getting into the graphical representation. Plug for the Network X package. We are friends now. We were not always friends, but we got there. It's a DAG. It's a directed acyclical graph. So directed means we have an arrow. Acyclical means no repeats. I don't know what graph means. It's not in the slides. We're all the way. Causal framework. Do y'all remember the MT cars data set? Right. Does engine size cause gas mileage? Gas mileage is how far you go on a gallon of gas. If you want to just pretend that's how far you go on a kilometer, how many kilometers on a liter of gas, you can, because this is an old data set anyway. And we have, this is a nice strong, it looks kind of causal, right? We have a nice strong effect. And when we run, I ran 3 regressions. I did, and this is kind of the R stats models syntax. But this is all Python code. Sorry I couldn't get the syntax highlighting to work. It did not. LaTeX and I are not friends right now. But we regressed. So variable of interest is miles, or the outcome is miles per gallon. We're interested in displacement, the size of the engine. Then I did displacement plus the weight of the vehicle, and then just miles per gallon based on the weight. And what we find, I think this is our causal chain. And what we have is here, displacement is really significant. Here, a little bit, but if you try to submit that to an academic journal, they're going to accuse you of p-hacking. We all know p-hacking, right? And this is all why we all went away and became Bayesian, so we don't have to put up with that stuff. And then weight, and that's because if we know weight, it tells us a lot about the displacement. And so you lose a lot of the message. So if you want to know if your beta of interest is this parameter, you have to leave out weight. Otherwise, you get this mix. Let me do this in a little more easy way. We have pizza. Random experiment, half the company gets a pizza party, half of it doesn't, right? And then morale, not moral, because we don't care about right and wrong here. This is statistics. We want to know about morale. How do you feel about going to work? Who's excited to go to work, right? And so we gave everybody a little questionnaire. And then we look at our retention, which is a long word for this graph, so I just said churn. And this is my Monte Carlo simulation that I did. And then I did retention on pizza. And this is highly significant. T-value is almost 3.5, p-value 0.001. We got statistical significance, right? What happens when I add morale, add that questionnaire, that remember in the causal chain, I can go backwards, nice. What you see here is this is just random times 3 points. This is pizza plus a random shock of -2 and depends on nothing else. This is the whole model. Retention is morale plus a shock. Highly insignificant, and actually our beta even switched signs. So if I bring this model to my boss, I say, boss, it's not that effective. And that's horribly wrong, right? So, another example, deadly ice cream. We all know that ice cream and drowning are highly correlated, right? Did you guys know this? Yeah. I'm not the only one. Somebody tell me I'm right. That's all I want. That's the whole reason I'm up here, is so that you guys can agree with me. So this is all simulated data here, but first model, I get a p-value of 0. This is really super duper significant T, right? The secret ingredient, and you find this in real world data too, it's heat, right? Who was swimming here in January when it was -20, -30? Yeah? We got 2. All right, you guys, respect, you guys are crazy. I can barely do 10 degrees. High temperature causes more people to go swimming. You can't really drown if you're not swimming that easily. You can, but you have to really work for it. And you also eat more ice cream. How many of y'all were eating ice cream in the middle of winter, right? Yeah. You guys are my people. That's me too. But the rest of these people, the weird ones, eat it more in the summer. And so I made another model. I have another. If you just do the 2, yeah. So we had highly significant. Here we have highly insignificant for the difference between drownings and ice cream. And actually, I don't know what I did with the model. Somehow temperature came out not significant. I saw that this morning and decided to see some of the other speakers instead. So I can't really get you. So who here is familiar with selection bias? Right, right. So we don't have to talk about it. Yeah. Simpson's paradox. Who? Everybody loves Simpson's paradox, right? It, is there anyone who doesn't know it? So it's this idea that it looks wrong, but it's really right. COVID, Germany, July 2021. Tried forever to find the data. The Robert Koch Institute has buried it. I miss it. Case fatality rate 2.4% for the unvaccinated, 4.3 for the vaccinated. That sounds wrong. Totally correct. And then this is classic. I saw this and was like, there it is. It's real. It's like when you see a celebrity in the street, right? Wrong. If you're in Nashville and you see a country music star, the Nashville coat, you keep your mouth shut. You do not go, oh my God, Dolly Parton, I'm such a big fan. This is Nashville. You quietly snap a picture and then tell all your friends later. So this is the DAG. We've got our high-risk individuals who are isolating better, so they're less likely to get an infection, but they are more likely to get vaccinated because at Germany in the time, you couldn't, if you were healthy, you couldn't get the vaccine unless you worked in healthcare. So these are your old, your diabetic, your asthmatic. And so risky affects death. Risky affects everything in this, right? Being vaccinated reduces your risk of infection, reduces your risk of death if you are infected, and infection obviously affects death. Because we're here only, this is death from COVID. If you get hit by a train, you're not in this graph. But I mean, first and foremost, the selection on that was the case fatality rate, the fatality rate for people who even had COVID. So now this is our DAG. And we have this, it's I won't go into details, it's called kind of a backdoor path from infection to vaccination to death. This is still a legitimate path. And that's really where it comes from. I pulled some numbers of chance of dying if you're healthy and unvaccinated is 0.1, healthy and vaccinated 0.01, unhealthy and risky 50% chance of death, but if you're vaccinated it's 0.3. Random numbers. I'm not going to swear by these. Chose some infections, a lot of unhealthy people getting sick, not a lot of healthy people, vaccinated people getting sick. And I came with these fatality rates that where actually nobody died of these 24, they're all still kicking. And that got me to, I got the 4.3 right. I had the 2.4. Sorry, I had the 4.3 right, and then changed something and ran out of time. But if you don't hate these numbers, then this paradox totally holds, right? Yeah. Fight with me about it later. And then I added this morning, and this is where I'm going to write at a time. Bergson's paradox. I don't know if you know it. Town last year created 200 restaurants, right? We'll call it Food Town. All the restaurants went to the food quality fairy, and the food quality fairy gave them a number 1 to 100. How good is the food? 100 obviously being the best. And then they went to the location fairy, and she waved her wand and said, you're by the train station and you're in the middle of nowhere, right? Two completely random things. So here's the graph. Why is that negative if, I mean, this is the code I used, right? Random integer 1 to 100, make it a 2 by 200 matrix, 200 by 2. Why is there this negative correlation? I know. You guys look confused too, and you're asking me, James, why are you showing that? That can't be the same graph. That's not 200 dots. We counted. You counted, right? And here's the thing. Quality affects whether a restaurant exists. Price affects whether a restaurant exists. These are the restaurants that didn't die a year later, right? Because if a restaurant has bad food and is in the middle of nowhere, it's going to go out of business. But how many of y'all have had bad food at the train station? Right? Or paid way too much at the airport for that cup of coffee, right? Shameful. If you include that, so this graph is with everybody, and I forgot to do it without the subset this morning. But I promise you that if you just did on everybody and not just on the two subsamples, you would have no correlation really. I want to briefly talk about counterfactual analysis because we only see the treatment effect, the average treatment effect on the treated and the not treated effect on the control group. We don't see the average treatment effect on the not treated. So what would happen to the control group if they were treated? What would happen to the treatment group if they got the control outcome, right? That's counterfactual. That means it's not real. That goes back to the COVID example. How many people would have died had they been vaccinated? How many people would not have died had they been vaccinated? You know, we don't see that. So what to look for? I'm out of time. I'm gonna run through it. You know, talk about the fork, the double causing, the collider, the pipe, and then spurious regressions. Did you know Emma Watson effects? This is causal, right? That's not even, this is what happens when you say, I don't know if Emma Watson affects this model, but I'm going to throw her in anyway. And this is a great site, this Tyler Vigan, spurious correlations. Actually, Google spurious correlations, you'll find his site. Thousands of these. Brilliant. Or just people live in cities, right? So look for causal questions, draw you some DAGs, get into the backdoor criterion, deseparation, Bayesian networks. If you get into that, they talk a lot about deseparation. It's got to do with if you control for these variables, are these parts of your model still connected to these? It's great. Or just go on a deep dive and talk about it at PyCon Lithuania, and you will learn more than you expected to learn and still talk too much about it. Just in the last, I've got just 30 seconds, right? All right. Judea Pearl does everything. There's a crash course in good and bad controls. It's a PDF. It's also a great website here. And they have a nice Kaggle notebook, except it's in R, and we know how we feel about R, right? Richard McElreath is my favorite statistical anthropologist, I think. He's got a great 3-hour workshop I link here, and actually his whole class is on Bayesian stuff. And there's a notebook that goes deeper into, and this good bad control go deeper into all this stuff that I skipped over. That's where you find that. If you really want to worry about what controls are good and bad, that's where you go. And then if you want to go academic, Judea Pearl's Causality, it's in the 2nd edition. This is the BibTech. If you want to go a little light beach reading, the Book of Why is actually quite a pleasant, accessible read. No linear algebra required for that one, which is nice. And then last one, Quantitude Pod. These guys who do Quantitude, if you do anything data, and it's the kind of podcast that you can listen to with your non-data partner. They are hilarious. They have an episode called Mankova Must Die. They hold Mankova a funeral. It's amazing. And then Daggity is just a nice website to throw your DAG in there and see what somebody else thinks via an algorithm. So thank you guys so much. It's been a blast.
Does anyone have any questions? We could take only 2. Anyone? Thank you.
So thanks for fantastic presentation. The question will be, so in the end, how can we improve the final result? What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, that's the part that it's so much to set up, so much to talk about. But for just brief example, collider bias. is that ice cream example, right? The deadly ice cream. Rain and pipe here are not correlated to each other if you control on mud. If you don't, they're correlated. Here, laundry and shower are correlated until you control. If you don't control on mud. If I done got my so what you do, you look for forks, you look for colliders, you look for mediators in your data. That's why you draw your DAG. So these three constellations, look for those in your data, and then ask yourself, where are my causal pathways? Am I blocking them? And that's where path tracing comes in, backdoor criterion, and deseparation, which I took out of this talk a month ago because I knew it would be way too long. And that's why I'm so heavy on the resources back here. Is this crash course is a really great crash course. It's a great website. And then the PDF has an amazing appendix if you want to get into a bit of linear algebra, the regression stuff, that what's going on, where do these betas come from, and why are they biased? Yeah, thanks. Sorry I don't have time. I would love to come back next year and do an hour or 2 or 3. One slide for, yeah, Richard McElreath. He is great. He's another one of these Americans living in Europe, originally from Colorado, and his meme game is much stronger than mine. Yeah. Does that count as 2 questions? I can stay here all day. Feel free to find me afterwards. I'm here tomorrow. I get excited about this stuff. I love the weird ways in which data interact with each other.
Thank you so much, everyone. There is coffee break now, and the closing keynote starts at 4:30.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Mm-hmm.